Does that guy, his last name is Abbott, does he have, did I hear correctly that he had a large number of the
Yeah, Rick is on the north side.
All right, call to order the City of Leawood Planning Commission regular session meeting for February 27, 2024. Will Secretary call the roll, please?
Commissioner Franze,
Here.
Commissioner McGurran,
Here.
Commissioner Belzer,
Here.
Commissioner Hoyt,
Here.
Commissioner Block,
Here.
Commissioner Stevens,
Here.
Commissioner Carlberg,
Here.
and Chairman Coleman.
Here. We have a quorum. All 8 members are present this evening. We'll go to item 2, approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes in the packet, one for January 23rd, 2024 regular meeting, and one for February 13th work session. We'll take the January 23rd meeting first. Any corrections on those meeting minutes?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Stevens.
I guess, I think I have a correction, but I'm not sure what it is. On page 17, the motion that was made, I think involved some revised language to the stipulation, and maybe Commissioner McGruin had suggested that, but it's kind of, I'm not sure it's clear in the minutes here on what that was included. Do you, the memo or the minutes say something as per memo made, and I think it was a verbal adjustment to the stipulations, but do you remember that?
I think you're accurate. I think that makes sense. I missed that. We discussed it. I think I suggested it, we discussed it, and I think we voted. I don't know what the memo would reference.
Yeah.
Can staff go back to the tapes and clear that up?
And there was a memo that we provided on that case, and so maybe you were making a point and you were updating it, but referring to a memo that was placed on the dais, because we did have a memo for that particular case.
Sorry, I don't remember it. Yeah. So, yeah, just go back and
Yes,
look at it.
we'll go back.
And staff can go back and just make sure the tape is correct and make sure the minutes before they get to the city council are.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. I did have one thing on page 9, under applicant presentation. We've done it before on other ones. If you could add in that he was via Zoom as opposed to in person. I believe he was on Zoom. You made a reference to it on another applicant, so just to try to be consistent with that. Any other changes?
Not on
Okay.
January.
Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Block.
I move for approval of the minutes from the January 22nd,
23rd.
23rd, sorry, Planning Commission meeting as amended.
Second.
Second, thank you, Commissioner McGurran. All in favor of passing the minutes for January 23rd, 2024, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Meeting minutes are approved, 8-0. That brings us to the work session meeting for February 13th, 2024. Are there any corrections on that set of minutes?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner McGurran.
Thank you, sir. Mine would be on page 6, kind of right in the middle. The sentence is the exercise mode when the testing occurs, and instead of as in the city on site to confirm, I think it would have said, and is the city on site to confirm. So just a minor typo.
Okay. Any others?
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman,
Stevens?
I have one here on page 7, Under Commissioner Stevens, Stevens is Stevens.
Thank you. I saw that as well, so thank you.
Yep.
Any other corrections? Okay, can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Black?
I move for approval of the minutes from the work session on February 13th as amended.
Second?
Second to Commissioner Carlberg. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes for the work session February 13th, 2024, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Commission work session meeting minutes are approved 8-0. That brings us to item 3, approval of the agenda. Staff have any additions or revisions to the agenda? No?
No.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Black?
I move approval for tonight's agenda, Tuesday, February 27th.
Second.
Second, Commissioner McGurn. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Agenda is approved 8-0. That brings us to item 4, case 11523, East Village, phases 5 and 6, request for approval of a revised preliminary plan located north of 135th Street and west of State Line Road. That is continued to our March 26, 2024 meeting. Moving on, item number 5, the consent agenda. Case 1824 Leawood Shops, Thread the Needle Tenant Finish, 2519 Somerset Drive. Request for approval of a revised final plan located south of Somerset Drive and west of Lee Boulevard. Does anyone wish to pull this from the consent agenda? Have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Black.
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Stevens, second. All in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Consent agenda is approved. That brings us to item 6, old business. Case 112-23, HALLBROOK Country Club, temporary golf pro shop and cart storage structures. Request for approval of a special use permit located south of College Boulevard and west of Overbrook Road. Staff have a report.
We do.
Go ahead, Ms. Alberg.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, this is case 11223, HALLBROOK Country Club, request for approval of a special use permit. The applicant is requesting approval of a special use permit that will allow for the use of a temporary golf pro shop structure and cart storage tent on the HALLBROOK Country Club site. This application was previously heard at the November 28th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. At that time, the Planning Commission requested clarification issues raised in the Fire Marshal's memo regarding the pro shop tent encroaching into the fire lane and possible resolution to said issues. Since that time, the applicant has been working with the Fire Marshal and city staff to find a solution, which is what you're being presented with this evening. Currently, both the pro shop and cart barn tents are still standing and being used for club operations. As discussed in November, these temporary structures were constructed to house the HALLBROOK Country Club Golf Pro Shop and cart storage until construction is complete on the updates to the main clubhouse and the new pro shop. These tents were erected prior to receiving planning approval, so this application is to bring those structures into conformance with the Leawood Development Ordinance. The applicant is requesting an 8-month special use permit from the date of governing body approval. This should allow the club the ability to complete construction on the permanent structures. The two structures are located at the northwest corner of the existing main clubhouse building within the club's northern parking lot. The use of the temporary facilities will obstruct the use of 32 parking stalls on the north side of the site. Per the LDO parking ratios for a golf course, the existing on-site parking is enough to sustain the parking load until the temporary structures are removed. After extensive discussion with the applicant and fire marshal, the decision has been made to remove the pro shop tent from its existing location, and this will remove the obstruction from the fire lane, providing the fire department full access to the 20-foot wide drive lane. A new temporary pro shop structure is proposed to be located to the southwest of where the existing pro shop tent was originally and will be tucked into existing parking stalls. The structure has been reduced in size to allow it to fit in this location without impeding access to the fire lane. The cart barn tent is constructed using insulated Guardian steel panels, tent framing, and PVC fabric material. The tent is braced with base plates and 42-inch double head stakes. No carts are to be stored outside of the golf cart storage tent. The new temporary pro shop structure is a Wilscott mobile office unit constructed of galvanized insulated panels with formed steel framing. This structure will be 2 stories in height, with the first floor housing club operations and pro shop sales, while the second story will be private offices only. The second story will be accessed via a staircase on the east side of the structure. The applicant is proposing the use of temporary signage on site to navigate patrons to specified locations. Signage will be required to be removed once the use of the temporary structures has ceased, and any permanent signage proposed for the permanent structures will be required to come through Planning Commission and governing body for approval. No landscaping is changing with this application. This special use permit meets the regulations of the Leawood Development Ordinance. Staff recommends approval of case 112-23 with the stipulations listed in the staff report, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lauterbach. One thing I want to point out on the dais, thanks to Commissioner Block, we have many meeting minutes from November 28, 2023, which on the second page references this case from previous meeting. So with that, I'll open questions. Anyone on my left have any questions for staff? Commissioner Block.
Just one small thing, Catherine, as a housekeeping issue. I know that stipulation 4 references Exhibit A as the fire marshal's memo, but I don't see the Exhibit A included on that memo. I don't know if it needs to be, just to, like I said, to keep it with this case.
We can update that, yes.
Thanks.
Commissioner Block. Any other questions from my left? Commissioner Carlborg.
Just a clarification, is the tent gone now?
It is not. They're both standing currently.
Okay, how long is that going to be up probably? Is it still in the fire lane that the fire department had a problem with?
Yes, staff has been talking with both the fire marshal and the applicant. I believe their intention was to leave it up until they have governing body approval, at which point they have a plan with the tent provider to strike that, remove it, and then they have a plan to put up the new one. We're looking at the week of the 16th of March for that to take place.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner McGurn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you just remind us, Catherine, of the time frame in which the fire department found the unauthorized structure?
Sure. The fire department, I believe, found it in October. That was the first news that we had of it. I believe it was mid-October.
Okay. And do we know approximately when it was installed, the 2?
I think it was about 3 weeks to a month before that. The applicant may be able to speak to
Okay,
that a little
so
bit.
maybe September. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from our commissioners on Zoom? Okay. Let's see. With that, let me open up the case for the applicant to come forward.
Good
Sir,
evening.
please state your name and address.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Bill Crandall. I'm a principal with Kopek and Brooks, and we're the owner's representative for HALLBROOK Country Club. I believe Jason Asbra is the GM, or he is the GM, but I believe he's on the Zoom call now. If there's any questions I can answer, I think he'd be happy to do that. But I just wanted to tell you that we appreciate staff working with us, and particularly Catherine, and the efforts to try to get it taken care of. Particularly the extensions, because it allowed us to really institute a recovery plan for relocating and finding a different alternate solution to relocate the pro shop. And I'm happy to answer any questions if I can, and if not, perhaps Jason can jump in, but be happy to take questions.
Commissioner Black.
I know that the request is for 8 months. I assume that you've got a little cushion built in there that you probably won't have it up that long, I would guess. So when do you think the project will be finished, the renovations?
If the 8 months starts in March, when it's approved by the plant, by the city council, yeah, that would give us some cushion. We've got, I think we're planning to turn the clubhouse over. Is it in Aaron, is it in September? Yeah, August, September is kind of what our turnover time is, and we seem to be on schedule right now.
Great, thanks.
Other questions? Commissioner
Mr.
McGurn.
Chairman? Thank you. Given the risk and the liability issues, it seems appalling to me that we are 5 months in and the structures are still there and They aren't going to be removed until the middle of March. The one of them isn't. And I just find it shocking that you guys are willing to take on that liability and that risk associated with this. I've sat here for years, and I don't think I've seen an LDO violation that just lingered and lingered and lingered. And I think it's appalling that it's 5 months later, and we're talking about giving you more time. I just find it odd. Why in the world would you not immediately have removed the one structure as soon as that was determined to be the case, and why would it take 5 months to get to that point?
I'm sorry you feel that way. Why we didn't remove it immediately, I would say, is because it wasn't a clear black and white breach of in my opinion. This is the fire chief may differ on this, but there is access. There was points of access the issue was, do they have access to around the backside of the club? And there are points of access to the backside of the club, albeit maybe 20 or 30 feet further. And so I think we were, and I appreciate staff working with us as well as the fire chief to try to see if there was a workaround. So a lot of that time was consumed with trying to amend the existing conditions. And once we figured out that we couldn't, we ran into, I'm not really making excuses other than the fact that this is sort of the facts of what happened. I think it took some time for us to really understand the scope of the issue. It took us some time to try to identify solutions that were reasonable for us. And then, we ran into the holidays. And so, right, it has gone longer, I think, than anybody had wanted, but I think we're prepared to remedy the situation right now, and again, appreciate the patience of staff and the patience of the fire chief, because it was certainly not our intention to overtly abuse that situation. And once we understood the problem, we were on it and tried to fix it, and just took some time.
I think the scope of the problem was obvious in November when the fire chief issued a letter that said that the HALLBROOK Country Club was taking full risk and full responsibility for any damage, any death, any issues revolving around their inability to use the fire lane. I thought it was incredibly clear at that point in time. So I just find it shocking and unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner McGurn. Any other questions from Commissioner Carlberg?
Just a comment. Commissioner McGurn and I agree on the timeliness and the need. I think with the change in the fire chief's letter, that means something, and I think that the attention to it now is a real fire build under it all, which we didn't have before. And I'm wondering if this is something to look at for the future as a process issue as we work as a planning commission that may need to further be addressed in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Carlberg. Commissioner Belzer.
No, I'm sorry. I don't have anything to add
Okay,
other than what's already been said. Sorry.
Just to let you know, your hand is raised on the Zoom
Oh, I was
call.
just moving. Sorry.
No. I mean, physically, there's the hand that's up on your Zoom call that you want to be called on.
It is?
Yeah.
I don't see it on my end.
And we see it on our end. At least I see it on mine, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, I will look at how to turn that off. I don't see it on here. So
That's fine.
I will work on that.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Crandall.
sir.
Appreciate you coming. This case does require a public hearing. With that, I will open up the public hearing. Anyone in the public will have 4 minutes to speak on this issue if they wish. Does anyone wish to speak on case 112-23, HALLBROOK Country Club? Seeing none,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Black.
I move to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, Commissioner McGurn. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Public hearing is now closed. That brings us up to discussion. The commission, or I'm sorry, would applicant rebuttal, does the applicant have anything else to say? Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Any discussion by the commission? I just have one thing to add. Personally, from my time on the commission, I think that it's been surprisingly a sloppy process by HALLBROOK Country Club. Everything from the construction of the tents without being prior approval. There's a note in here from the fire chief or the fire marshal that the electrical work is being done without a permit. So I'm glad that we caught this, but again, I'm surprised at how sloppy a process this has been by the applicant. All right, with that, does anyone have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Block.
I move for approval of case 112-23 HALLBROOK Country Club Temporary Golf Pro Shop and Cart Storage Structures.
Commissioner
Second.
Block. Second, Commissioner Stevens. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of approving case 112-23 HALLBROOK Country Club, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The case is approved 8-0. Mr. Crandall, thank you very much for coming this evening. I appreciate it. Good luck with the rest of the project. Okay, that brings us to new business. Case 0324, St. Michael's Rosary Garden, 14251 Knoll Avenue. Request for approval of a final landscape plan located north of 143rd Street and east of Knoll Avenue. Does staff have
Yes, we do.
a presentation?
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. This is case 03-24. This is St. Michael's Rosary Garden. The applicant is requesting approval of a final plan to construct a 2,904 square foot landscape garden with an internal walking path at the St. Michael the Archangel Church, which is located at 14251 Knoll Avenue. The applicant is Rob Lish with St. Michael the Archangel Church, The architect is Doug Pickert with Indigo Design. The landscape architect is Matt Albers with Land Art. This property is currently zoned AG, which is our agricultural district. They do have a special use permit currently on file, with that being for a worship and school purposes. With the surrounding zoning, the Villas of Chapel Green subdivision is located to the north. The Glen Abbey of Leawood subdivision is located to the east of this property. Both of these are currently zoned RP1. To the south is the Healthcare Resort of Leawood, which is zoned RP3, and there is also the Colonial Oaks Senior Living at Leawood, which is zoned agricultural. And then to the west is the City of Overland Park boundary line. This proposed rosary garden would be located to the north of the worship center, which is the church building currently on site. This area is currently vacant open space and is internal to the parking lot. The project area encompasses approximately 2,904 square feet. This would include a 5-foot concrete walking path in the shape of a rosary, landscaping, seating, shade structures, statuary, and a recirculating water feature as well. So a 4-foot tall black wrought iron fence is proposed to be placed along the northeast and west sides of the garden. The south side would remain unfenced. Sections of the concrete are proposed to be colored with epoxy in the color of indigo cloth by Valspar, which is a deep blue color when you look at it. And this design would mimic a rosary. The colored concrete circles would represent the beads of the rosary. So throughout the site, there are 5 larger circles, which would represent the rosary beads. This would mark the location of 5 separate limestone seating areas with a trellis overhead. These trellises would be custom built to fit the site and should be approximately 9 to 10 feet in height. There would also be a trellis at the entry of the rosary garden, and it would arch over the sidewalk. Limestone benches throughout would be constructed with creek border stone veneer from Black Hills. At the southern side of the project area, there's a proposed statue called Lady of Grace. This should be approximately 5 feet of height. And at the base of this statue is where the water would pool and then trickle north towards the center of the garden and recirculate underground back to the top. There's one existing evergreen tree currently on site. That is to remain. No existing landscaping is to be pulled out. The applicant is proposing to add 1,224 plantings to the site. This would be a variety of evergreen shrubs, ornamental grasses, perennials, deciduous shrubs, vines, deciduous trees, and evergreen trees. Quite a large number of plantings. The applicant is also proposing to use large moss stone boulders for retaining purposes as well as architectural details, excuse me. These would vary from 1,500 to 2,500 pounds in size. There is an existing irrigation system which would be reconfigured to reach the new planting materials. And there is no additional lighting or signage proposed with this application. So staff would recommend approval of case number 03-24, St. Michael's Rosary Garden, located at 14251 Knoll Avenue. Request for approval of a final landscape plan with the stipulations in the staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ewing. Any questions for Ms. Ewing? Before I go on, I just want to apologize to Commissioner Belzer. Apparently, the cursor on the laptop here has a hand on it. And the cursor just happened to be on your little square, so.
I didn't see it, and I know I didn't do that. I'm like, who's pranking me?
Nice apology.
Okay, just want to point that out. I've never seen a cursor with a hand on it before, so I'm educated tonight with that. Let me ask again, any other questions for staff? Without that, we'll go on to the applicant. Is the applicant here to make a presentation? Yes, sir, come on up. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Rob Lish, and our address is 14251 Knoll Avenue in Leawood, Kansas.
Welcome to the commission, Mr. Lish. Do
Thank
you have
you.
any presentation or anything you'd like to say?
Not in addition, thank you for considering this. Thank you also for Cameron for helping us through this process. We think this is going to beautify and enhance the already beautiful campus that we have at St. Michael.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner McGurn.
Just a comment that it looks like a fabulous use of the open space, so congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Commissioner Block.
I concur with that. It looks very nice. My only question really is the bench. I think there's only going to be one of these benches.
If I can phone a friend in the back, but the reason why there would only be one bench is there's very little kind of common space. Most of it is going to be landscaped, and then the meandering sidewalk, and then there's one little area there in front of the statue that Cameron mentioned that will have the bench.
And I don't know if you or your contractors have had any experience with the bench. It just, I guess I might question just the quality of it. Only, it's a semi-public area. You know, I know it's fenced. Maybe the general public won't be there, but something that bolts down, kind of like a city park. You know, something that might, I don't know. I don't know. Just my estimation is this isn't going to last very long, and I think it might cheapen the overall project if it's. But again, I haven't had any personal experience with it. I just, compared to some of the other benches and things we've seen, I would say that it looks like a lower quality to me. It would be my only concern.
Okay, good. Thank you for that feedback. We'll look into that.
Any other questions for the applicant? I just had a question on security. I know you're going to have the 3 fences around it, but you're going to have one open. Are there cameras or anything? That's my only concern with this.
The reason why there's fence on 3 sides is because the other side has a wall that is essentially against the back of the building. Okay. So it's open on 3 sides currently. Those are the 3 sides that would be fenced in. The other side has a concrete or a masonry wall behind it anyway.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies on the Zoom.
Okay. Is there any discussion by the commission?
Looks nice.
Thank you, Commissioner Carlborg.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Black.
I move for approval of case 03-24, St. Michael's Rosary Garden, 14251 Knoll Avenue.
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner Black. Second by Commissioner McGurn. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. With that, all in favor of approving case 0324, please proceed by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Case 0324 is approved 8-0. It brings us up to case 0724, Tomahawk Park Playground Replacement and Expansion. Request for approval of a final plan located south of 119th Street and west of Mission Road. Does staff have a report?
We do.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, this is case 07-24, Tomahawk Park Playground Replacement and Expansion, request for approval of a final plan. This application proposes updates to an existing playground within Tomahawk Park, just south of 119th Street and west of Mission Road. The proposed playground would be located in the same general area as the currently existing playground, but is being reconfigured and expanded to allow for 2 different play areas for different age groups. The new playground will accommodate children ages 2 through 5 and 6 through 12 in the 2 play areas. The existing circular sidewalk surrounding the site is being removed. The playground equipment is proposed to be spread throughout the 2 play areas and is age appropriate for the different ranges provided. The maximum height of the tallest proposed play equipment is just over 13.5 feet, and all equipment will primarily be purple and light green in color. The playground surface that will surround the play equipment is kiddie cushion, which is an engineered wood fiber safety resurfacing. A concrete curb will surround the areas to keep all materials contained. Seating is available around the park in the form of both standard and limestone benches. The trash receptacles on site are being replaced, and the split rail fence that exists on site is being extended to include more of the park. Currently, 1 park shelter exists, but the applicant is proposing to remove the existing one and add 2 new shelters, which will include benches and tables, small grills, and these structures will be roofed with a standing seam metal. The bases of the shelter posts will be covered with dove gray cut natural stone veneer. No lighting is being added to the site or to the shelters. New educational signage will be located in 3 different locations around the park. These will provide information regarding native birds, animals, and plants. Each sign will be approximately 18 by 24 inches and will be mounted on frames attached to posts. These signs will match the style and colors of the existing educational signage in Gezer and Elon parks within Leawood. Landscaping is being removed near the existing park to accommodate for the changes and is being replaced on a caliper inch basis. Included in the landscape plan is the addition of evergreen trees to provide additional screening to adjacent residential uses. No parking is being changed with this application. This application meets all requirements of the Leawood Development Ordinance, and staff recommends approval of case 07-24 with the stipulations listed. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lauterbach. Does anyone have any questions for staff? Commissioner Black.
Are the columns for the structures, will they have a cap?
I believe so, yes.
I didn't see it, I just didn't know. It'll be a cast stone or something similar to the next case that we'll see from the Parks Department, or do you know?
The applicant might be able to speak to
Okay.
that a little bit better.
All right, thanks.
Commissioner Carlberg.
I don't know if I missed this. What's the schedule on getting this completed?
I'm going to defer to the applicant on that as well.
Pardon?
I'm going to defer to the applicant on that as well.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? No. With that, we'll ask the applicant to come forward. Please state your name and address for us.
Hi, good evening, Planning Commission. I'm Brian Anderson. I'm Assistant Director of Parks, Recreation, and Arts for the city. I'd just like to start out by also echoing some of the other comments, thanking the planning staff and our Public Works Department for their review of our project and helping us make sure that we're complying with all of the LDO requirements and that sort of thing. So one thing that came out of this was because we are increasing the scope a little bit of the size of this playground footprint and adding a shelter, we realized through the planning review process that some of the shelters that could potentially cause like a rise in the floodway, and so we had to go back and have a study done, and then we have changed grading, and that has caused us to, unfortunately, we have to remove some trees in the way where we've got to make a swale to accommodate any kind of excess water so we can accommodate any rise, right? But we're gonna make lemonade out of lemons, I guess. So we're gonna plant a bunch of trees that replace the caliper inches that we would lose here around the loop trail that goes around the park in general. So that'll provide shade for the future, just of the trail system itself. So that's just something different. And then I'd also like to just say the playground that we are replacing, it's about 25 years old. It went in about 1998, and it was at that time designed for children ages 2 to 12, which at that time was an acceptable a recommendation. However, what you find is, and you watch these features and how the heights and limitations and things, it makes it accessible for real small children, but the older children tend not to be challenged so much. And so that's why our new design is something that we wanted to separate out. We wanted to have something for the preschool age children and then also the grade school age children. So that's why you're seeing that. And then taking advantage of some of the existing trees and the property back behind there, we had cleared out some of the understory, and we feel like bringing in some natural elements, some ground-based things with additional benches, picnic areas, that interpretive signage that they mentioned will all be a good feature and fit this place. And then the playground equipment that we've selected, it's brightly colored. It's kind of something that will attract children to come play on it. And then it also has a little bit of more of a fitting in with kind of that natural theme that you see. We just think it's going to be a really nice area of our park and really enhance the enjoyment. We're also keeping all of the amenities that are popular that we have heard about right now, like tot swings, for example. There's not a lot of tot swings, we found out, in a lot of different nearby playgrounds and parks, so we wanted to make sure we kept that. As far as also the belt swings, and then slides are always popular. And then the climbing and the rope stuff, that's going to be a new feature that we don't have in our system in our city anywhere, so we thought this would be a really good add-on to what we're doing. So, gosh, with that, I guess to answer your question earlier, we thought what we'd like to do is we get through the planning process, we can get through this final plan approved by the governing body, and then our next steps will be to go out to bid and get our, but in this case, we're going with this Berliner equipment, so it's under a bid process that we can adopt without going to bid. So we're going to utilize the pricing from the vendor, and then we'll get a contract with them, and we start this summer. Hopefully we can get it done here by the end of the year, be our goal. So with that, be happy to answer any other questions you guys may have.
You know, before we open up the questions, I understand this could be your last planning commission meeting. You have an impending retirement?
We're hoping this work session that he'll be at his.
Okay. All right. Well, just in case, this could be your last time to ask Brian Anderson questions. So with that, let me open up the commission to questions.
I'll do it.
Commissioner McGurn.
Brian, I'm sorry to hear that you're leaving, and I congratulate you. You've been a joy to work with, and this case, like anything else that's come out of the Parks group, has obviously been impressive. So thank you for all of your dedication to Leawood.
Thank you.
Number two, this may be a silly question, but are the colors purple and light green among the colors that fade the slowest over time?
Well, that's a good question. In my experience, we see like the light blues tend to fade faster. So,
Okay.
I mean, I would say we wanted to kind of stay away from that. Plus, we already had the blue there. So we want to just go with something that's a different look. And then, you know, I think it should last. So the plastic in these playground components, usually the normal life, I would say here in Kansas, somewhere around 20 years. Maybe a little less than that. That playground that we have now, we have replaced the plastic slides in the past, and it's just because of UV deterioration. It wasn't so much as fading as much as it was we would get some type of cracking, and the playground, the plastic would become brittle, and so we would need to replace it. And so over the years, we've probably replaced 3 or 4 of those slides that exist there. So I won't say that playground was just maintenance free the whole time. We've had to replace plastic, and that's usually the first thing that goes out on you.
Okay. enough.
and things like belt swings. And then there's wear points where, movement of the swing hangers and things like that. That's routine maintenance that we do. Also, I didn't mention, but this being in the floodplain, one of the reasons why we went with the engineered wood fiber, and if you guys look at the plan and the design in there, we have a base rock, and then we've got under drain system, and then we've got a filter fabric, and on top of that will be this mulch. And the intention there is to help facilitate drainage when we do get a lot of rain or if we get a flood condition. The thought is that if you can get the moisture away from that engineered wood fiber, it'll last longer. And so that's just a design plus that we thought we wanted to add to this one. We haven't done that in some of our other playgrounds, and so that just speeds up your need to have to replace it. So this should extend the life.
Excellent. My last question relates to funding. Can you just give us a brief overview of how this is being funded?
So we have this as planned as a CIP project, capital improvement project in our funding this year. And so that's where we've got it and where it's slated to just be replaced now. So
Terrific. Thank you.
yep.
Commissioner Franze?
Yeah, will any part of the trail system be closed during construction on a temporary basis at all?
Yes, there will be. There'll have to be some of it, but we can do a detour. So I don't have a site plan for you. If you're real familiar with it, there's two access points, one coming in from Row, one coming in from Mission Road, and then there's the loop that goes around, and then before it, the trail goes north underneath 119th Street. That segment right there, I guess between the Mission Road coming in and then coming in from Row, we'll have to close off just that portion, and we can detour traffic around it to the north. So the trail system itself will be open. We'll have to close we have an abundance of parking there in that park. That's one thing that we have plenty of. And in the past projects, we've been able to allow staging of materials in part of the parking lot, and we still have ample parking in this park. So that parking shouldn't be an issue. There won't be a lot of activities because the only thing we'll really have for you to do is use the trail or the baseball field till we're done.
And one other question, did you look at putting bathrooms or anything in that location?
So we have looked at that. It's going to be a long-range plan if we would ever move down that route. That's all in a floodplain down there. So to elevate a building, I think we would be looking at somewhere at least about a 6-foot elevation rise for the building. So it'd require some extensive groundwork, and then we'd have to bring utilities into that park. We have no water and power or sewer that's in the park anywhere right now. It'd all be coming in from either off of 119th Street or maybe through a residence back behind there. If we could get an easement to tap into sewer line or something like that, we'd have to explore all that. But it's been something that if we could have running water restrooms there, that would be a great addition to that park. But right now, we don't plan to in the near future, though.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions? Commissioner
Mr.
Hallberg?
Chairman?
One of the things I think about when I was looking at this is I think about that park that's along Knoll that was right near where the golf course was that they've developed, and I don't recall the name of it, in Overland Park. Having gone there with grandchildren, how popular that is, and this reminds me of the same kind of quality of that. And I think it's going to be a terrific feature and a draw for Leawood and a good image builder for our city. And so while this isn't a question of the applicant as much as something to get into the record, I hope that the city will do really good communications, really thoughtful communications about this being there so we can attract people to that area and then to the businesses around that area too so they can make a dollar on it. But I really appreciate the good work.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Carlberg. Was that Commissioner Hoyt or Commissioner Belzer that one?
It was Commissioner Hoyt.
Okay, Commissioner Hoyt.
So mine is strictly a comment to Brian. I did not realize that this might be one of the last opportunities to address you, and so I'd like it in the record that I personally and the citizens of Leawood owe you a huge debt of gratitude for the work that you've done. And I take it all the way back to our lowly Leawood Stage Company about 25 years ago or more, And I know I told you this before, but again, I believe it's important enough to enter into the record that I don't think that we could have had the success we did without you and your extreme willingness to do whatever we asked you to do. So, you know, I appreciate everything that you've done from the city, and it's such a wide range of skill sets that you've brought. I don't know how we will replace you, but thank you.
Wow, you're making it really hard for me to be retiring. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. That was just amazing. I appreciate it. And I have appreciated working with all of our volunteers in the city, this commission over the years. Some of you were on our park board at some point in time, and you guys were great. And I'm going to miss you all. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Black.
I too will miss you and appreciate everything you've done. Beyond that, I like the benches for what it's worth. I like these benches better than the last proposal. And maybe to add on to Commissioner France's question, is there kind of a master plan that will allow some space for the bathrooms down the road so this doesn't have to be moved or terribly disrupted? Is there a place for it potentially?
Yeah, there would be. We're thinking, I mean, if areas we've looked at would be, if you're familiar with that parking lot, right just north where the playground is, and perhaps to the west, I guess, would be the most opportune location, somewhere in there. We'd want to, we'd really want to study that, though, make sure that we wouldn't be impacting the baseball field and the play, that sort of thing, keep it out of, either adjust that or, you know, we may have to change a few things to do it, but there'd be room, certainly, if we could get the land ready.
Got it. And then my question from earlier, these columns, I don't think it was called out in the report, but there'll be some kind of a solid stone cap on these columns?
Yeah, there will, because, and here's what we plan to do is, I think this is going to be the stone columns as an accent add-on feature that I think we in-house would do. And so similar to, we've done some of these stone add-ons at other projects. And so, yeah, we're used to, we would have more come in and have a cap on it to weatherproof it so we wouldn't get a lot of moisture behind it. That's what you're concerned with?
Yeah. I mean, usually we see a kind of a finished cap that, yeah, to help it with the weather. And then this is kind of getting into the weeds too, but the columns are pretty big, especially compared to the next case that we're going to hear from the city. It just seems like it takes a lot of space away. I don't know, you're not concerned about that? Maybe that's just me. The bases look big. You know, the rest of the column is pretty small, but looks like a full cinder block on each side, basically, if I read the plan correctly.
Yeah, I think, well, let me call up our landscape architect, Erica Flad. Maybe you can help.
Good evening.
Erica, can you please give us your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. I'm Erica Flad, and I live at 4214 Charlotte Street, Kansas City, Missouri. Yes, you're right. The columns are, the bases are a full CMU block.
Yeah, and I guess my question, I mean, it just seems like it takes up a lot of space compared to the other project we're going to see, which, you know, they're shrunk and it just gives you more room. But I guess if you're not concerned about it, I guess it's...
I just would say that that's a pretty typical base detail. There's plenty of room for the picnic tables and grills and trash receptacles in both of those shelters.
Okay, thank you. I just had one more question for Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Brian or Chris, whoever, just, you know, so, you know, we're going to see another case, again, I know another at the Leawood City Park, and you did the Tomahawk bathrooms, Tomahawk Creek Park, I guess, Trail Park, whatever it's called, not too long ago, and it seems like these are all a little bit different. Is that by design? I mean, you know, why are they not, I guess, just a little bit more consistent or the same, but, you know, the same design? I understand the aquatic, you know, you want to match the aquatic center for the one at Leawood City Park, but I guess it just kind of stood out. If you're doing these all at the same time, why not make them all look the same? Was that by design, or, I'm just curious?
Yeah, well, so I think that I think the stone is going to be a similar color and a similar tone. It's just that what we ended up going with on that, so the bathroom building at the North Lake is a pre-engineered metal building, or not metal, it's a pre-engineered design built in a factory building that came here. And so it was sized such that we had to use like a thin set stone on it and not the more thicker that we're going to use with a natural stone here in this park. So that's a concrete, tumbled stone is what we used on a product that we used on that bathroom, and so that's why, I guess, for the reason that it's not the exact same, it was going to fit that site better.
Sure. And I guess just where my mind goes is, if you had back stock, attic stock, something, a stone falls off, you guys would have it and not have 6 different ones. But, you guys are running the department, I'm not. That's just how I think, I guess. So just curious. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, so for example, I'll just bring that why we sometimes can't, like Gezer Park, for example. The stone that we used there was actually imported from Israel, and so it's got a special texture and everything else that we can't match it here. So that's going to be a different one. So, yeah.
And I'm okay with it, every park being unique and and them not being exactly the same. I get that again. I just didn't know if there was something else to it that I was missing. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Ms. Clausen, did you want to say something?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner McGurran's
Sorry,
comment.
can you please put your name and
Oh, I'm
address
sorry,
in
yeah.
for the
Chris
record?
Classen, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Arts. If I could follow up on Commissioner McGurran, when you asked about funding, I wanted to make sure that to give the the appropriate appreciation to the Leawood Foundation. This is their project, and they are fundraising for to help us with some of the costs. And we have placed a banner down there at the entrance to the park, as well as down by the playground, where people can do the QR code and make contributions. So I just wanted to mention that.
Excellent point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine?
Mr. Chairman, Michelle and I were checking to answer Commissioner Block's question about the cap. It's also going to be a 2-inch natural stone on top.
Thanks. And maybe it was in there, I missed it. I don't know. Thanks.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, moving on to discussion. Anyone have any comments regarding case 0724?
Nicely done.
Actually, I do. My first comment is I think this is a great improvement to Tomahawk Park. When my kids were younger, I tried to take them to every park in the greater Kansas City area, and my middle child called this park boring with the playground equipment and said, can we go to the Grandview Park where I can climb all over the place? I'm like, sure, no problem. So I look at this as a great improvement. Leawood's parks are renowned. That's why people move to Leawood, the school district, as well as the parks. And I just think this is going to be a great added feature for our community. And then third, with Brian, I've known Brian for 12 years serving on the Parks and Rec beforehand. He's always done a fantastic job. And I think that's what makes our city even better, is the dedication and the longevity of the people that work here. So congratulations to you on your career here. Good luck on retirement, and hopefully we'll get you one more time next month for our work session in a more relaxed atmosphere for you. So, with that, is there a motion? Commissioner Block.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of case 0724 Tomahawk Park, playground replacement and expansion.
Second.
Second, Commissioner McGurran. Any discussion? All in favor of approving case 0724, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Case 0724 is approved, 8-0 to the governing body. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Ms. Claxton, you have to stay. All right, that brings us to case 0924, 135 Village Cooperative Age Restricted Living. Request for approval of a final plat and final plan located south of 135th Street and west of Kenneth Road. Staff have a presentation.
We do.
Catherine, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, this is case 09-24, 135 MXD, Village Cooperative Age Restricted Living, request for approval of a final plat and final plan for a 4-story, 108,713 square foot residential building on 3.02 acres and revisions to the development design guidelines for the 135 development. The preliminary plat and preliminary plan were approved by the governing body in January of this year with case 89-23. The project site is currently vacant and is situated on the east side of the 135 MXD development, north of 137th Street. This building is proposed to house 59 units. The two primary pedestrian entrances to this building are on the east and west sides, both with metal accented canopies covering the entry doors. There are two vehicular entrances to the property, the northern entering the property from an internal drive along the west side of the building, and the other is located to the southeast of the building off of 137th Street. Multiple sidewalks surround the site, including a 6-foot sidewalk surrounding the parcel and 5-foot sidewalks internal to the site. A 6-foot asphalt trail is to run along the eastern side of Lot 1, adjacent to Tract A's natural vegetative area, running north and south, connecting to 135th and 137th Streets respectively. A parking study was reviewed and approved with a preliminary plan approval to allow 1 fully enclosed space per unit and 35 above-grade parking stalls. The applicant is proposing to run conduits for 6 electric vehicle charging parking stalls on the surface parking lot, which would have level 2 charging capabilities. They are also proposing that all underground parking would have level 1 charging capabilities with the capacity to upgrade to a level 2 charger should that be requested by a resident. The building is proposed to be 61 foot 6 inches tall from grade to the top of the building, which is a small increase from what was previously approved at 59 foot 10 inches. The final elevations propose a mix of materials for the facade of the building, including cement board, brick veneer, cementitious board and batten, metal roof accents, and asphalt shingles. A pitched roof is proposed for this building using an Owens Corning True Definition Duration Flex laminated composite shingle in the color Estate Gray for the roofing material. The colors were chosen to complement the colors proposed within the 135 design guidelines. Due to certain materials no longer being available in the design guidelines, the applicant is also revising the guidelines with this application to update them to match what is available and proposed with this project. In terms of amenities, the applicant is proposing raised garden beds at the southeast corner of the site, along with bench seating options across the site and a pergola with outdoor seating, gas grills, and a small fireplace on the west side of the building, adjacent to the entrance. The applicant is proposing a mix of street trees, ornamental trees, deciduous shrubs, and grasses for the property. The proposed final landscape plan meets the requirements of the Leawood Development Ordinance. A separate landscape plan has been approved with a final plan for the west side of the development, but staff has stipulated that the landscaping for this project shall be complementary and similar to what is already approved on the west side. For lighting, the applicant is proposing the addition of 20 new parking lot luminaires to the site, which are also required to match the approved lights on the west side of the development. In addition, lighting bollards will be located along the pathway to the entrance on the east side of the building. Signage is not reviewed or approved with this application, and sign criteria will need to be brought forward for the entire 135 MXD development prior to any signage approval. This application meets all requirements of the Leawood Development Ordinance, and staff recommends approval of case 09-24 with the stipulations listed, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lauterbach. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Carberg.
I wanted to get an explanation, just from my own understanding, of Tract A, which is a wild area. Could you elaborate a little bit, somebody elaborate a little bit on what that really means, whether it's truly just wild? There's got to be some maintenance, I would imagine, that goes on, and, you know, I'm glad to see it. I just want to understand it better.
Tract A is actually it's a native area that they actually receive credit for as far as part of the bonuses for this development. The applicant, of course, would be responsible as far as to clear out any trash or anything like that. If there was situation as far as homeless and everything, they would contact the police, and the police, as far as no trespass, would assist in that. They did try and make this kind of an amenity area because that was actually part of the stipulations and the reason why that tract was allowed to be used that way. And part of that is where you see that trail and everything go up along there. So,
second question. that has bike areas, bike parking on there. Is there other biking areas in this general part of town, or is this going to be kind of an isolated area?
There is, on 137th Street, there'll be bike lanes. There's also a bike trail that goes along 135th Street and then kind of goes down along Kenneth Road as part of it. So yeah, there will be biking opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner HALLBROok. Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you. With that, I'll invite the applicant to come forward. Please state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Andrew Schaefer. I'm with Real Estate Equities Development Company, based out of, our address is 1303 Corporate Center Drive, Eagan, Minnesota. Just want to say thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. We've been working over the last 9 months or so through the process, and we were here, I think in November for the kind of the preliminary plan. And over the last 2 or 3 months, we've been working diligently with city staff, who's been a pleasure to work with on all the details of the project. We're excited to be moving this project forward to the final stages for approval. And with that, I guess I just ask if there are any questions.
Any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner McGurran.
I'm just curious about timing. Let's assume that you get approval tonight and potentially next month with the governing body. What kind of time frame are you under to begin, and approximately, what time frame do you think you'd end?
Yeah, we're trying to get the project going as soon as we possibly can. So we're working on final plans and would hope, assuming we get approved by governing body next month, that we're submitting for a permit shortly thereafter, and the goal would be to break ground early summer if possible. We've got, the project's been, we've been doing preliminary marketing for the project, and we've already got over 60% of the homes spoken for from interested parties, and we're working on financing for the project right now, and everything looks good to get it underway. The construction time frame varies anywhere from about 16 to 18 months, just depending on the time of the year that you start, and just how the weather impacts really getting the foundation of the building in is the biggest challenge, sometimes weather-wise. So it would be completed probably late 25, potentially early 26, depending on the actual start date.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Stevens.
I guess I'm curious about some of the information on the civil drawings here in the packet about the, on the site, there's this easement area that's labeled the booster station area. And it, looks like it has fence, it has a head wall and retaining walls and maybe a previous drive to it. And it appears like, or it's a little confusing, but it appears like it's to remain. It's not part of the demolition plan. But then later, it looks like grading, the grading plan is filling that in with grading. The new sidewalk is on top of those retaining walls. Can you speak to what's happening with that area of the site?
Yeah, I think I would ask, Phelps Engineering is the engineering firm that's designing the civil component of the project, and I guess I'd ask for their help in answering that.
Sir, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, Doug Ubben, Phelps Engineering, 1270 North Winchester, Olathe, Kansas. Yeah, the area there, so that pump station has a bunch of, has the pipes out of it are abandoned now, they're not using them anymore, so we'll continue to coordinate with Water One to get their permission, permission is in the Public Works memo to give staff their approval, but all those pipes out of that pump station are abandoned now.
And so it would be demolished?
Yeah, it'd be demolished, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and so it's showing up as not demolished, but that may just be your survey background?
Yeah, just a survey background. We'll get that updated on the demo plan, but yeah, the grades reflect what the final condition will be on the
I
grading
see.
plan.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? I had a couple, Mr. Schaefer. Number one, the age, I think I read 55 and over. Is that still your demographic that you're going to hit?
Yes, so we're going to age restrict the community under the federal fair housing laws that we have to follow to 55 and over. We've developed a lot of these communities, and typically our average age is more in the upper 60s to low 70s. So we do get some maybe in their late 50s, but majority of people are in their 60s and 70s.
Okay, so do they have to, does one participant in the household have to be a minimum age of 55, or are you
Yes.
elastic with that?
So in following the guidance and the rules for fair housing, one of the residents would have to be 55 or over. If they're married and have a younger spouse, the younger spouse can live with them, since there's one that qualifies.
Okay. Second question, on the cooperative part of it, I assume that these are owned then, or can you go a little bit into more of a cooperative ownership?
Yeah, sure.
Model?
I'd be happy to. So a cooperative is an ownership housing option. It's a little bit a different form of ownership than maybe people are familiar with, but we will have 59 homes, and we will have 59 shares in the cooperative corporation. So each person that purchases a share is entitled to one of the homes within the cooperative corporation. And then they contribute monthly to carrying costs and operate the cooperative for the benefit of all 59 shareholders. The people that live there are the only owners of the community, and it's their building, so.
Okay. So how does that differ? I used to own a condo in another city before moving here. How does that differ from a condominium as opposed to the cooperative?
Yeah, so cooperative is, it's not new. There's, cooperatives in Manhattan that have been around for a long time. But instead of actually owning and deeding a square piece of real estate in a condominium association, even a high-rise, you're actually kind of getting the deed for that rectangular space. In the cooperative, you don't actually purchase that real estate. You purchase a share in the corporation, similar to a share of stock in a corporation. Gives you entitlement to your proportionate share of the ownership of the building. So it's just a different form of ownership.
Okay. Are the residents going to be different square footage then, or are they all the same?
Yeah, so there's, I think, 18 different floor plans within the 59 units, so there'll be a lot of unique floor plans. They range from about 900 square feet up to about 1,500 square feet, maybe even 1,600 on the high side. So there's a lot of variation in different sizes.
Okay. On page 3 of the report, there was a mention about how trash would be located in rooms on the underground parking level of the facility, and dumpsters would be brought out of the building on trash day. Who brings the trash out, and how big are these dumpsters that we're talking about?
Yeah, so the building will have 3 staff people. They're part-time, they're maybe 20 to 30 hours per week, but there'll be a manager, an on-site manager, and then there'll be a maintenance staff person, and there'll be a housekeeper to keep all the common areas clean. And so the maintenance person would roll those out on trash day. So there's, within the building itself, there's on each floor a trash chute. So they'll take the garbage to the trash chute, drop it down, it'll go into a dumpster in the trash room in the garage, and then they'll roll those out just for pickup and then roll them back in.
Okay, so someone's physically pushing these things up from the parking garage onto a site where the trash company can
That's correct.
pull them, dump
And
it.
depending on the grades, sometimes we have to get one of those electric pullers or pushers that take them.
Okay. My other question was on the parking study. We were not, a parking study was not included in our packets. And the parking study says a reduction in the amount of parking stalls needed for a senior living facility is that you're going to have one enclosed stall for each resident. So is that one stall in the actual building itself in the parking garage? And then surface parking is whoever wants it?
Yes, that's correct. So there's 59 stalls in the underground parking garage, one per home, so everyone will get one. And then additional parking outside on the surface lot.
And are you going to have additional, because it's a community parking lot, are you going to have enough with the other residents in the area?
Definitely have enough to service our community. As far as the surrounding area, there will be eventually commercial built to the west of us, and there will be a cross parking easement as stipulated, I guess, in the approval. But based on our studies we've got about 35 plus established communities. We do parking studies on those on an average day, maybe 4 to 7 of the parking stalls out in the parking lot are taken once the building is occupied and people have settled in there. So we should have more than enough parking for the community itself.
It'll just be a fight between the spouses of who gets the underground parking garage.
Yeah, and it's also very common that we have about 50% singles, 50% couples in our communities. It's about average, and then it's not uncommon that people will go down to one car once they kind of move into the community and get rid of that second car that doesn't get used very often.
Okay. I was just my parents are 89, 85. They still have 2 cars. Both of them still drive. And so if they moved to that, I think they could file for divorce over that issue of who gets the parking stall.
Well, they could buy 2 shares and then they get 2 stalls inside.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. All right, that's all I had.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner McGurn.
I'd like to piggyback on your conversation, and it reminded me when the representative was here for the preliminary plan, I asked the question kind of along the lines that the chairman did, and it also related to kind of the process through which not only does someone buy in, but they sell at a point in time. And one of the comments that gentleman made was that there's often a wait list when the building's completed, or even shortly thereafter, that there were people that wanted to get in that didn't get a chance to get in, so there's a wait list. So I was just thinking about the one that you've got over, is it on Lowell? Off of, it's before...
In Overland Park?
Yes.
Yes, 123rd and just kind of west of Blue Valley Parkway?
Correct, exactly.
So just south of the Target there, yep.
So that facility hasn't been finalized for very long, maybe in the last 6 months or a year?
Yes, so people started moving in, I don't know if it was August, somewhere around that time, August or September.
So just out of curiosity, if there's been anybody that for whatever reason, it might have been a death or it could have been, other situations, chose to try to sell, have you found in that example, this local example, have you found what that gentleman said is typically the case, that they go real fast because there's a waiting list, there's other people that might want to move within the co-op, there's people that want to get in from the outside? Is that what's happening at the one in Overland Park?
Yes, so in Overland Park, it's a 52-unit community. They were all sold I don't know, 6 to 8 months probably before the building opened for occupancy. And then we started to take a wait list at that point in time. So I think when we opened the doors there was approximately 20 people on a wait list if a home became available. And it's grown from there. I think it's in the upper 20s to almost 30 at this point in time. So it'll take a long time to get into that community. We don't see a lot of turnover. I mean, typically if there's someone that moves out of the cooperative, something in their life has changed or there's a health need where they need to move out. But we, the average member in one of our cooperatives on average is there 7 to 9 years, depending on the community. So you'll have a few units turn every year, but the wait lists are pretty healthy on all of our communities we've developed. It seems like the longer they're established, the longer the wait list ends up getting on them. So,
And the person who sells, you know, a year after they've been there or 20 years after they've been there, is there some form of reassessment on the value of the share, and it's definitely worth more than it was before, and so the person who's selling gets that differential?
yes, so the cooperative has a controlled share value to it. So the bylaws dictate the future values of the shares. So they go up 3% per year.
Okay.
And so if someone purchases a share in the cooperative for, let's say, $150,000, it would go up $4,500 every year they're there. And then when they want to move out of the cooperative or sell their share, they notify the cooperative that they would like to sell their share. Typically, the cooperative is going to utilize that wait list for finding the next owner of that share and home, and they will pay whatever the current value is based on the bylaws formula, and the person moving out gets the share value back. So with their original purchase plus the appreciation.
That's a good explanation. I appreciate that for the record.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Frenze?
Does your company continue in like a management role, or are the communities like self-governed by the residents? How does that work?
Yeah, so the communities are self-governed, so they'll elect a 5-member board of directors a few months after, you know, we let people kind of get all moved in and settled, and then they'll elect a board of directors who will govern their community. We used to manage communities, but geographically we're so spread out. Currently we're in 11 different states, and it's been hard to do that. So we've been partnering with local property management companies. In fact, one of our former employees kind of took over the portfolio of communities we have here in the Kansas City area and is managing those. So we'll work with a local firm to manage the community. We do stay involved through the first at least year after people move in, just to make sure things go smoothly. We also work with the contractor to make sure they warranty anything that they need to, as far as, you know, once people move in, if there's small issues that need to be addressed, we stick with the project and work with the contractor and work with the residents in the community and their board, just to make sure things go smoothly.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Garborg.
Piqued my interest on some of the management of this. Do you give them a framework of a budget as they start out and you're getting this spun up based on your other communities, or how does that work?
Yes, so I mean, there's a healthy operating budget that's established on the front end. It covers everything from all the utilities to the taxes to the insurance. Some of those are estimated. Obviously, you can't get an insurance quote 2 years in advance, but based on the operation of our other communities and known costs, we can get it pretty dialed in. And then once they move in, the board of directors will approve their budget every year. So the benefit kind of the cooperative is it's owned by the people that live there, instead of someone else owning the property, maybe trying to increase rents. For cash flow purposes, there's no reason to do that in the cooperative. The people who live there make the decision. If they need to increase their budget a little bit, they will, and then they contribute equally to the additional costs if warranted.
Based on the homeowners association I'm on, so that would include restriping parking spaces, patching up asphalt, the wild area maintenance, the tree maintenance, and everything.
Yes, it would. Yep. And there's also reserves that are funded for capital improvements down the road. So when, you know, carpeting needs to be replaced or appliances need to be replaced, the cooperative actually takes care of all that. So it's not individual shareholders having to do that down the road.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Schaefer, thank you very much for appearing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It brings us to discussion. Any discussion on case 0924? Okay. I'd just like to say two things. Number one, I think this development is a great addition to Leawood. We talk about diversifying our housing stock. This does that in our 135th Street corridor. I think the citizens of Leawood that are aging who want to stay in Leawood, this is a great opportunity to do that. I also like the ownership component of it. I really feel strongly that home ownership is a great deal. It's a wealth builder for people to continue keeping their wealth as they age. I think it's a great idea for the city. So with that, can I have a motion? Commissioner Block.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of case 09-24, 135 Village Cooperative Age Restricted Living.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Franze. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of approving case 0924, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Schaefer, thank you very much for appearing in person. Good luck. It brings us to the last case of the night, case 1724, Leawood City Park Shelter Replacements, 10601 Lee Boulevard. Request for approval of a final plan located south of I-435 and east of Lee Boulevard. Staff have a presentation.
Yes, we do.
Go ahead, Ms. Ewing.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Cameron Ewing, Planning. This is case number 17-24, Leawood Park Shelter Replacements. The applicant is requesting approval of a final plan to demolish the existing west and east shelters at Leawood City Park and to construct 2 new park shelters, restrooms, and a concession stand. This property is currently zoned rec, planned recreation. Surrounding zoning to the north is US Interstate 435. To the east is SDO, our planned office district. This area is currently unplatted and vacant. To the south is AG, Agricultural District. This is owned by the city of Leawood, and most of this area is within the flood zone, excuse me. To the west of the property is zoned AG Agricultural District. This is owned by Johnson County Wastewater and is currently the site of a water treatment plant for the county. So going into site comments, I'm going to start with the west shelter. This west shelter currently exists with 2 shelters that have a roof that structurally integrates both of them together. The picnic shelter and the concession/restroom building. So currently at this west shelter, there are 12 picnic tables, 2 grills, and a drinking fountain. The line shelter, concession stand, and bathrooms would be demolished. In its place, there will be 2 separate structures with their own individual freestanding roof. The new picnic shelter would have 14 standard picnic tables and 3 ADA picnic tables. The existing 2 grills would be removed, and then a new grill would be relocated to the northwest side of the picnic shelter. The concession stand/restroom shelter will house the concession stand, storage room, and gendered bathrooms. Both bathrooms will include their own individual adult changing table to be inclusive to kind of route in the playground located to the north. The concession stand would require a condenser unit that is proposed to be located adjacent to the northeast corner of the concession stand/restroom shelter across the sidewalk. The existing pavement at the west shelter would be reconfigured. The impervious area would be reduced about 150 square feet. So now looking at the east shelter has 2 separate structures currently, Shelter House A and Shelter House B. Each structure has 6 picnic tables and 2 grills. So both of these structures are proposed to be demolished, and in their place, there would be 1 picnic shelter and 1 restroom shelter. These would be 2 separate buildings with their own freestanding roof. The 4 existing grills would be removed. 1 grill would be relocated to the north side of the picnic shelter. This shelter would have 4 standard picnic tables and 2 ADA accessible picnic tables. This restroom will have individual use, single-use restrooms, and both of them will have changing tables for children, excuse me. The existing pavement at this area would be reduced by about 1,600 square feet of impervious area. Okay. So now going into elevations, I'm going to talk about the west shelter first. Specifically, the picnic shelter. This picnic shelter is proposed to be constructed of structural wood columns stained with the color 72 butternut. Each wood column would be finished with a split-face natural stone veneer base. This is from U.S. Stone Industries in the color top ledge cottonwood limestone. And each of these veneer bases would be capped with cast stone from Midwest Cast Stone in the color 1A, which is kind of a sandy beige color. This roof is proposed to be gable structured and finished with standing seam metal from Barrage Manufacturing Company in the color dark bronze. What sets this picnic shelter apart from the East Picnic Shelter is that there is a proposed structural integrated fireplace at the northwest corner of the West Picnic Shelter. This fireplace is going to utilize the same stone that is on the veneer base as well. A standalone grill will be located about 14 feet away from that fireplace. There is a requirement for the fire memo that this structure, that the individual grill must be at least 10 feet away from the structural wood beams, so that is why they are not integrated together. The overall height of this picnic shelter is proposed to be 20 feet 2 inches. At the east shelter, this picnic shelter is proposed to be finished in the same architectural details. However, it would be slightly smaller in size. The concessions/restroom shelter at the west shelter is architecturally designed to mimic the design of the Leawood Aquatic Center. The east shelter's restroom is also mimicking this design as well. The west shelter's concession/restroom shelter will be approximately 783 square feet in size and will feature a sloped roof. This will be standing seam metal from Barrage Manufacturing Company in the color dark bronze. Both restroom buildings propose a band of fluted metal fascia paneling under the roofline. This material is also from Barrage Manufacturing Company, however, it is in the color lead coat. Under that, a band of fiber cement trim is used in cobblestone, in the color cobblestone, is utilized to transition to the fiber cement lap siding beneath. The overall height of the concession/restroom shelter is proposed at 17 feet 18.5 inches. I lost my paper. Excuse me. The overall height of the west concessions/restroom shelter is proposed at 17 feet 8 inches. The overall height of the east restroom shelter is proposed at 14 feet. With landscaping, the west shelter's condenser unit is proposed to be screened on all 4 sides with morning light maiden grass. There would be a total of 8 plantings to screen the condenser unit. So with lighting, the west and east restroom shelters are both proposed to have wall-mounted downlit lighting on the exterior of the building. The west restroom shelter is proposed to have 7 exterior wall-mounted lighting around the exterior, whereas the east shelter is only proposed to have 4. The lights on the restroom shelters would be on a photometric cell and would operate from sunset to sunrise, and they would automatically shut off from sunrise to sunset. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve case number 17-24, Leawood City Park Shelter Replacements at 10601 Lee Boulevard. Final plan with the stipulations listed in the staff report.
Thank you, Ms. Ewing. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Block.
I just had a couple minor, I think they're likely typos. At the bottom of page 2, it references an adult changing table in each. I assume that's a child's.
So actually there will be adult changing tables in the west shelter. The east shelter is specifically for children.
Okay. And then on page 5, under the east shelter heading, it references the west shelter. I assume that should be east as well.
Yes, I will correct that.
And then we typically, I think, get cut sheets on furniture with these final plans, and I know there was a reference to the number of tables and benches and such. I don't think there was anything in my packet. Are they the same as the last case, or do you know, or I don't know that we...
I would defer to the applicant on that question.
I think that's all I had then.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Block. Any other questions? Commissioner Carlberg?
Quick question, just on the manner of planning on these things. How does the city determine when an upgrade is needed in these kinds of facilities? Is it by use, purely age? How do we do it?
How about we hold that question until we open up for the applicant? Any other questions for
You can get
staff?
ready.
Okay, with that, could we please have the applicant come forward? Please state your name and address for the record.
Chris Claxton, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Arts.
You move first, so you see you're up first then.
Ms. Claxton, would you like to make any presentations?
I would just say to Commissioner Carlsberg's question, it's similar to the playground that we talked about. When that shelter was built, it was only the shelter, and then the restrooms were added. So you can see the roof is bowing. The restrooms are very outdated. They're inadequate, especially since we put the all-inclusive playground in. So after a while, they just, they're at the end of their useful life. The ones that are on the east side of the park, those are all concrete. They've been there since the 70s when the park was first developed. They are dilapidating. They, again, the same thing. Having those two shelters there, people can rent them independently. A lot of times they'll rent one, they take over two, and we just felt this was a better way to use the space. Also with the restroom on the east shelter, there is no restroom down there now, so we're not able to facilitate the dog park, some of the soccer, sand volleyball, so that was much needed to add that. So that also allowed us to take that down a little bit in terms of what it could accommodate. Part of that too is there are several very large trees up there. We wanted to save those, so we incorporated that design and working with our architect in order to do that. So I hope that answers your question. If not, I'd be happy to.
Any other Commissioner Block?
Yeah, congratulations on kind of getting this, because I know my time on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, I know this was on the wish list 8 or 9 years ago, and I don't think it was new at that time. I think this has been on your list for a long time to do this. A couple quick questions. The fireplace, I think it's a nice feature. Is the intention to make that operational?
Yes. So we would probably manage it similar to what we do at Gezer. That's a little bit different in that that's covered, it's gas-fed. This would be wood, so we would require that to be noted on a special use permit where we would probably provide the firewood. We don't like firewood being brought in because it can have disease or insects in it that would be detrimental to the park. So we would supply what we felt was adequate. Usually you would see those in an evening rental. That shelter has 4 rental or 2 4-hour rentals, or you can rent it for the whole day. Most of those fall into the 2 4-hour rentals.
And has the gas been, it just seems like it's a big can of worms.
We wouldn't do a gas there.
Okay.
It would just be wood.
I see.
Like you would do it at a fire pit in your home and, with just wood, so.
And then my question about the furniture, again, you might have submitted it in your application, but we didn't see any cut sheets. Is it similar, I assume, powder coated?
I think right now we're planning to use what we have, and we don't bolt them down because we frequently have to move them around for different groups if they ask, so.
Okay, so this maybe that's the answer to my next question. So I thought that maybe the condenser unit would have a cage around it, just because, the thing doesn't walk off. I know it's bolted down, but people steal, the copper. Is that, if you're not concerned about the tables, I guess you're not concerned about that, but I just was.
Probably not. I don't know if I don't think we have our architects here, but Brian, I don't know if you want to address that or if.
So Just for the record, Brian Anderson again, back. So I think your question was, do we get vandalism or the tables being moved?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, most of your benches and stuff, I thought you did secure, so I was kind of surprised that they're not bolted down, but.
Oh, gotcha. So these tables are really heavy. I mean, they would be hard to vandalize. We haven't had any real vandalism in the park there. The reason that we're anchoring them down at the other park and the playground is more of a floodplain issue. We don't want them getting, pushed around and moved. If you go like on the parkway, our shelters out there, we have all those tables fastened to the structure so they don't disappear on us in a flood.
And I don't know how if you have an air conditioner of some sort now in that area, I mean, are you not concerned about the condenser getting stolen?
Well, I will tell you, we have surveillance cameras on our maintenance building that can view that space. And so, I mean, we have some already existing sectionalizers and things in that very area. So, I mean, if that would happen, I mean, it would have, or could have at any time, I suppose, the attempt could be made, but this is really, I guess, our best option. There's a lot of other electrical items right in that very area.
Sure, and not really my issue, but I only asked because I guess I just didn't know if it would impact the plan at all, if you wanted to add one later or whatever the case was with the plantings and such. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Block. Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Belzer.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. Brian, thank you for all your work for so many years. It's been great working with you through the Planning Commission. And Chris, also, I just want to say I love the cohesive designs. I love the mimicking of the buildings in the aquatic center. I think it's going to be a great addition to the park and really just be cohesive all the way through, which I just love. And having rented most of these shelters, I appreciate these great updates. So thank you both for all your hard work.
Thank you, Commissioner Belzer. Any other questions for the applicant? I did have a question. I didn't realize there was a concession stand already in the current facility. I don't think I've ever seen it being used. And I saw in the new structure, there's also a concession stand. Is it currently being used, and is that going to be a viable thing to have a concession stand?
Yes, so we do use it for soccer.
Okay.
And we also have used it when we've had the Lions down there. By the way, this will be called the Lions Shelter again, so there will be another dedication probably from our civic group, the Lions. But so yes, it does get used quite a bit. We use it for camps and some other things. And we minimized the space a little bit in order to provide an extra restroom in the women's side, because that typically is more used than the men's side. So we added another toilet in that area. So, and the other thing about the reason it's freestanding as compared to being added on, because it was also added on and then the restrooms were added on, is that we have people that want to access the concession stand. Well, the shelter may be rented, so they literally have to go into the space that's being rented to go to the concession stand. So the architect flipped that. We made kind of a breezeway there, and they can also now, if they want to drive up, they can get the concessions from that south window, pardon me, so that they don't have to interrupt the rentals.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, that will lead us to discussion. Any discussion on case 1724? I just want to say thank you for doing this. I know there's always a long list that Parks and Rec has for the CID or CIP, and I'm happy that we're improving our parks in this manner. Obviously, everything is used a lot, so I think this is a good addition to the city.
Thank you. And when we planned all these things, they were not planned to all come together at once, but our very good friend COVID contributed to that. So, but we are thankful for your approvals, and I want to compliment the planning staff. they're tough but fair. And they, you know, make sure that we're doing, and I think having these new process they have to have these pre-application meetings has been very valuable to us, so we appreciate them adding that to their list. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, with that, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Block.
I move for approval of case 1724 Leawood City Park Shelter Replacements, 10601 Lee Boulevard.
Second?
Second, Commissioner Carlberg. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of approving the motion for case 1724 for approval, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes 8-0. Thank you, Ms. Claxton, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate your work on this one. 2 items. Number 1, State of the City address is on Thursday. I'm going. I hope to see more of you guys there.
I have been in the past. I've been in the past, and it is very interesting and very well done, and the food's fabulous, and it was well worth going. I happen to be out of town this time, so I won't be able to make it.
Well, if you don't have your tickets, I think they closed yesterday, so you could probably still get in, or I think they're selling on StubHub for like double the amount right now. So. Mr. Klein, work session on March 12th?
Yes. We'll be going over the comprehensive plan, the annual review of the comprehensive plan, and hopefully self-propelled Leawood update as well.
Okay, so Brian Anderson, Swan Song?
That's what I'm hoping.
Making condition of his employment, he has to show up at that. Anyone have anything else to bring up? Okay, in that case, we are adjourned until March 12th for our work session. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.